With great pleasure, I welcome you to the Nigerian Virtual Book Fair 2020.
And welcome to the 19th Annual Nigerian Book Fair.
So welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the 2020 Nigerian International Book Fair.
What have we done? If you publish a book and it doesn't get to the end user, that book is out.
Many booksellers associations fail. As our moderator pointed out, there is the inevitable conflict between individual success, running fastest, and association success, moving together.
First of all, let me congratulate all who have worked hard to take the traditional book fair online.
Hello everyone, and welcome back to the studio room of the Nigerian International Book Fair Trust. We very much commend you for connecting with us since we started this event today. Please note that the next program we are about to have is the Authors Group, organized by the Association of Nigerian Authors, and the theme is creative and other writings during the COVID-19 pandemic and afterwards. And the moderator for this session shall be Mr. Olatubosun Taofik. Of course, we also have panelists on this program, which includes Ekaite George, Henry Akubuiro, Anote Ajeloro, Shola Alamutu, and Oyekachi Anoha. And please note that this program would actually run from the hours of 1 p.m. to 3 p.m. Nigerian time. We enjoin all of you who are nationwide or worldwide to actually connect with us as we commence this program. Just a quick reminder, in case you have any question or comments for any of our speakers, please use the chat button below your screen and send us a WhatsApp message on +234 7016 98 8732. I'll take that number again. +234 7016 98 8732. Please note that there is a download material option just beneath your screen in case you might want to download the slides of the presentation. Kindly stay tuned while we bring the second program for today to your hearing. Over to you.
All those locally and internationally linking to this program as well, you are welcome. I'm Olatubosun Taofik. I'm also a writer, and today it suffices me to remind you that this is the 19th virtual Nigerian International Book Fair, which started on the 1st of September and to be rounded off on the 7th of September with a theme titled Technology as a Panacea to Book Industry Sustainability amidst COVID-19 pandemic. However, in today's authors group, 4th of September 2020, we are faced with a theme, creative and other writings during the COVID-19 pandemic and afterwards. So we're looking at this topic, and I have with me on the panel a very resourceful persons who have been doing greatly in the industry when we talk about the Nigerian writing industry. My panelists for today are, the first of them is Henry Akubiro, second Anote Ajeluru, Ekaite George, Shola Alamutu, and Onyekachi Enoha. Henry Akubiro is the arts editor with the Sun newspaper. He's an award-winning writer, he's a literary journalist, and the author of the novel Prodigal in Paradise and many other children's books as well. Anote Ajeluru is also a literary and cultural journalist with the Guardian newspaper, and his book Ego Goes to School, Ego Goes to Farm was also longlisted for the Energy Prize for Literature 2019. Also have Shola Alamatu on the panel. She is an environmentalist, a green activist, a writer of children's literature, and other things like that. Then Ekaite George is also a writer, a development writer with a focus on gender justice. So we'll be listening to her, what she has to tell us today about issues related to gender and the COVID-19 period. Then lastly, I have Onyekachi Inoha, who is a writer and an academic. He lectures at the University of Calabar. He's a researcher, and his area of concentration is digital literature. So, all the panelists, you're welcome to this program. And from here, we're going to take it off. Firstly, let us hear from Henry. 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 Henry, please. Henry. Henry, please.
Maybe his mic is muted, so you can just chat him to unmute his mic.
Okay. Okay, Henry, please unmute your mic. Okay. So, Henry, are you with me? Okay, let me go to Ekaite George. Ekaite.
Hello.
Ekaite, can you hear me?
I can hear you very well.
Okay, you're welcome to the office. Nice to have you around. I think looking at the topic for today, I'm going to take it up from a very critical part. You know, this COVID-19 has actually been something that has really everybody across the world talking about it. But there is a critical aspect which had to do with the question Achieve Long asked, and I see no response was given to that question. And that question from Achebe is that is an Igbo proverb which says, if a man does not know when the rain began to beat him, it's likely he's not going to know when it's going to dry his body. So we need to know the source of the COVID-19 itself. So my first question to you is that tracking down patient zero is actually the first person who was infected. Tracking down patient zero could be key to the understanding of this virus and how to come for that transmission. But from the Wuhan city of China, December 18th, 2019, WHO was alerted on the 31st of December 2019 about this case. But later on, it was denied that there is nothing like that by even one of the foremost epidemiologists, Zhong Nanshan, who said in the recent conference that there are no evidence that shows that COVID-19 actually originated in Wuhan. Now my question is, who exactly is patient zero? That's the index case, the first patient infected with the COVID-19 outbreak.
Okay, thank you.
There seems not to have been evidence or scientific way to tell us who these people are. The creative. Yes, so as a creative, please could you respond to this?
Okay, that is if I got you well. You will want to find out from me what I think about the patient zero, right?
Yes, exactly.
What my response is to the whole thing about patient zero. Oh, okay, thank you. It was breaking a little bit. Well, before I go there, let me start by saying I'm really delighted to be here. Thank you, and everyone who has tuned into this program. I think that this is a very, very worthy initiative. Thank you to the organizers. Thank you also, Ola, for having me. The patient zero when it comes to COVID-19 is I think if I heard you well, you also muted, it's become a sort of controversy. And personally, if I understand how I've been feeling from the beginning of this whole upheaval of COVID-19 up till this moment, I think that I don't want to be involved in the controversies about whether the patient zero is who they said it was or who it wasn't. What I do know, though, is that from reports we heard in the news and from the health authorities, that the outbreak began in China in the end of 2019. And as it has to do with Nigeria, the first case that was reported, if you might say, the patient zero, as it has to do with Nigeria, was the Italian who was first reported as having been diagnosed and admitted in the hospital in February 27, 2020. As for all of the interesting and some downright silly controversies about COVID-19 and the patient zero, I just have to pass on those because we have so much to deal with. I don't want to add that controversy to the things I deal with. So that's my own take when it comes to that. I hope you're hearing me well, though, because I can't hear you well myself.
Yes, I can. The question that is being asked is about the issue of patient zero, which happens to be the index case of the COVID-19 infection. As a creative, what kind of response are you likely to give to this political issue of who exactly is patient zero, where and how and what exactly?
Can you hear me? Hello?
Yes, I can.
Okay, good afternoon. I'm saying that there have been a lot of controversies in regards to the patient zero. And if you look at previous pandemics, if you look at HIV and all that, scientists have not been able to identify the patient zero, leading us to extend the boundary of what Achebe considers as knowing where the rain started beating us. Now, as a creative, would move the boundaries of patient zero into identifying the community of the outbreak. Since the world has been able to identify the community of the outbreak, then I believe focusing on the community, they will be able to find a solution within the environment and by extension within other communities that are affected by it. Now, emphasizing the concept of patient zero might complicate the matter. So basically what the world needs to do, or what we need to do as creative, is to look for solutions in regards to the pandemic, rather than emphasizing who first got the sickness and all that. That's for me. That's my own take on that.
For you think by trying to search for patient zero is just going to lead to complications, not necessarily preferring a solution?
Yes.
Okay, but there is this argument that if we can't really identify who exactly was that patient zero, we may not be able to take care of this kind of problem in the future if we have similar things. What then do you think about that?
Well, such argument too is complicating in the sense that, are we saying that the solution or the medicine or the cure lies in the patient zero? You should also understand that this pandemic.
Because if you know the
you should also understand that this pandemic, the sickness has mutated. that the environment and the individual also affects how the virus mutates, and it has mutated over time. So if you are using patient zero as, which is a past concept, to cure present situation, it might be complicating in the sense that the patient zero might not provide the actual solution to finding a cure to the pandemic, because the sickness, the virus has mutated over time, and what it was 6 months ago is quite different from what the world is experiencing at present.
Thank you very much for your position. Let me go back to Shola. Shola. Okay, let me go back to Henry. Henry. Do I have Henry there? Henry.
Okay, are you taking Henry or?
Okay, yes, Shola.
Are you ready for me?
Can
Yes.
you hear me?
I was trying to unmute my phone.
Shola,
okay.
Okay.
It's really low,
yes,
but I'm
Shola.
going to try and hear what you have to say. So go on. Sorry.
Okay. Yes, I'm still about the patient zero. What is likely to be your response about the issue of patient zero and resolving the crisis of the COVID-19?
Okay. Good afternoon, everybody. Okay, being asked to start my video. It's a pleasure to be here. In terms of the patient zero, from what I understand, the person who first got this virus in Wuhan tried to warn his people, but he was silenced. And so, like somebody said, I can see his name, Oyekachi said, trying to concentrate on that at this point in time might not help. Perhaps if it was earlier, on in the crisis, it would have helped as a creative or as anybody. But what it is that has happened, for example, in Wuhan, where at some point in time we heard the crisis, the coronavirus had ended, but apparently it's gone back again. Some of the things that we can try to find out is what happened. Why does it keep coming back? Because in almost every country, there's a time when it reduces, it goes away, and then there's a spike. What is causing that spike? Because that's going to affect every single person, whether you're a creative or not. That is where my concentration would lie. And that is my own greatest fear as a person and as a creative. What is causing it to spike? Why is it coming back again when it's supposed to have ended in certain places? Because it's going to affect my writing, it's going to affect my work, it's going to affect my life, it's going to affect every single person. So that's where it is, I think, that to concentrate on what is happening. How many patients are we going to have after this patient zero before it stops? You need to unmute your mic if you're talking to me. I can't hear you. I see your lips moving. Okay.
Hello, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Hello? Yeah, okay. What I'm saying is that as creatives, do you think that it is completely out of place for us to try to imaginatively provide patient zero, maybe for the sake of the future, that if such kind of thing is likely to happen, with such kind of write-up about whom this patient zero is likely to be, we could resolve such kind of future problems?
I think that it will not just be interesting to write about it, to actually even make, like a screenplay, or even a play that can be on live theater. I think that would be really very interesting. Like you said, for future generation, it's something that, just like we found out what it is that happened when, Hiroshima and all those other crises occurred. it really would be very nice to find out what it is that has happened now and share it, you know, write about it and share it on, you know, on film, live theater. I think that the script writers have a job basically just waiting for them.
Okay, on the patient zero.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, thank you very much. But before you take your leave, let me go to one of the questions that is meant for you. Shola, there is an upsurge in rape, child abuse, domestic violence during this COVID-19 period. What is your response to such degradation that is happening in the society? Because reading through the papers, you see a lot on domestic violence. What exactly is happening?
Sorry, your last sentence.
Okay.
I heard your beginning, the end.
Yes. There is a upsurge in rape, child abuse, domestic violence during this COVID-19 period.
Yes.
And a lot of people are looking at all this from different angles.
Yes.
What is your response to such situations and this upsurge in the society during this period?
Okay. There is an upsurge, most definitely. I have been indirectly involved because of the work I do. I run Jabez Place, which basically aims to promote awareness on maltreatment of children, on violence and rape. Unfortunately, what has happened, as far as my research has found, is that because people are at home, people who should be out, people who should be going out, for example, parents who should be going out to work, at some point in time, they couldn't go anywhere. So the outlets were not there. The children who should be in school are not in school, they are home. So everybody is at home and everybody's together. And there's a lot of tension. It's something that is unusual. We are very communal. If you take it from Nigeria or Africa generally, we like to go out, and we're also very social. We're very sociable. We like to go out, we like to meet with people and hug and have fun and have parties and everything. All of that was all stopped with the pandemic. Now, unfortunately, what has happened is that those who would, for want of a better word, have other places where it is they could let out their sexual urges, were not able to do that. And so they were looking inwards, and we had cases of fathers and stepfathers in particular raping their children, their stepchildren, and also taking advantage of house helps. So, because these are the people who are in their immediate environment. And that was also then extended to their neighbors who also were not going anywhere. Now they're young, they're vulnerable, so it's easy to call them and say, okay, come here, come and take sweet, or come and take whatever it is, or send them on errands and then come back and then rape them. Now, this unfortunately also continued when the mother or the older people in the house went out. These men were staying at home. Some, I believe, were deliberate, but again, that was another cause for increase of rape, of violence in the home, in terms of children. Now, in terms of husband and wife, again, nowhere to go out, nowhere to vent. You vent your anger, you vent your frustration, you vent your lack of work on your spouse, either husband or wife. You know, we heard a lot of killings going on, a lot of really, really terrible things, people cutting their spouses up and all of that. All of those because they were frustrated, couldn't talk to anybody, couldn't go out, stayed at home, and the nearest people were the ones that were being attacked.
Okay, as a critic, in what way do you think that we can respond to this kind of situation at hand?
Okay, well, one of the things that I did and my organization did is we got together with other creatives, and we set up a few webinars where we talked about it. And I was also invited by people from different parts of Nigeria to talk about it. And of course, that made me then write about it. That's one thing that creatives can do. We shouldn't shy away from it, because that's the reality. It is not nice, it is unpleasant, but it is a reality. And what it is we should do is really shine our light on reality, the reality of things. What exactly is going on in life? That, I believe, is one of the things that creatives should do. Shine your light, use your pen to let people know that this is what is going on. And then, of course, look for those who can find a solution to it. And I think that we're starting, but we're not doing enough. So we need to get our heads out of the sand, come out, find out what is going on, talk to people, and write about it. We cannot write enough. We shouldn't get tired and think, oh, but we're doing it all. Yes, you just keep on doing it until somebody does something to stop it. Sometimes they say we can't stop it, but at least we can reduce it and put it in the very barest minimum. If it is government we need to write to them, we write to them. Anybody that's going to make a difference, we need to come out and write to them. And if we need to protest, then we write and we protest and we put up our signs or whatever it is we feel about it, and let people know that the creatives have taken a stand against this, and this is what it is we want to happen.
Thank you very much. I think I will be coming back to you. Let me go back to Henry. Henry. Okay. Henry. Henry, please. Okay. Are we having Henry now? Okay, I move on with my question. Let me go back to you, Ekaite. Ekaite, back to Nigeria now.
Yeah.
Please. Ekaite, are you with me?
Yes, I'm with you. Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay.
Back to Nigeria.
Great.
Yes, I can. I can hear you. Back to Nigeria. Please, Ekaite, use your staying indoor COVID-19 period more of a blessing than curses to you as a writer.
Please, can you come again? It was breaking a little bit, so I didn't quite get you.
To you as a writer. Okay. Yes, I said, now please use yourself as an example. We want to get a first-hand case study from you yourself and how you've been able to manage the time during this COVID period. The question is staying indoor, there's a lot of staying indoor during this period. Is staying indoor during the COVID-19 period more of a blessing than curses?
Wow, that's an interesting question. I do not want to say that this is more of a blessing than it is a curse in that sense, but I'd like to say this. The COVID-19 pandemic has driven us indoors. And when I say indoors, it means that, with the first lockdowns, we are not able to go out like we used to visit friends and the rest of them. So for me, that has been a little bit tough. And it is not just because I have to be indoors, because I love to be indoors. I'm actually a homebody. There's no better place for me to be than in my house. But I don't like to want to go out and not be able to go out. So that was a little tough for me to navigate at the time. Having said that, even though it was tough, what you would refer to in your question as a curse, it also afforded me opportunities to ask myself, why is this particularly hard for you? Why are you finding it really difficult to stay indoors now that you are compelled to stay indoors? And I began to navigate some of the issues that I may not have paid attention to. For instance, I've had to deal with anxiety issues for many years now. And as anyone who's dealing with any form of mental health issue knows, when you are enclosed into a place forcefully, it becomes even more difficult for you to handle that. So it became a struggle for me to be able to deal with myself within the space that I was, when, for instance, I would have loved to just go hang out with friends and talk, and I couldn't find that time to go out and talk. So I began to do some deeper search for how to deal with the particular issues that I may not have thought about. For instance, I spoke to a mental health expert who gave me this tip that if I'm dealing with difficult emotions or difficult feelings, that writing them down every single day is one of the ways that I can deal with it. So I started to do that. I started to just, at the beginning or at the end of the day, sit down and tell myself that it was really tough for me today. Just getting out of bed was hard. All of the things that I was worried about, all of the fears that I had, I put them down in writing, and I kept on doing that. And for the first time, I realized that that was really helpful to me in dealing with the anxieties that was plaguing me at the time. So in terms of that, it is because I had to deal with the COVID-19 forced lockdown by government that I really took the time to ask myself, why are you really so anxious about this at this time? And how can you deal with it? And then I sought help. Now, in terms of my work as a writer, you know, I had some work that I had done and I'd left aside, and I wasn't looking at it for a while, because after I write, I find that I tend to leave it to cool a bit before I go back and look at it. I started to have a lot of free time, more free time in my hands. So I went back to it. I looked at it. I did also write. You know, I told you that my friend advised me to put my thoughts, my anxious thoughts, on paper. So some of those were turned into poetic thoughts.
Right.
I turned them to poems, and I wrote them and I shared them with others. And it even formed some of the content for my book, which is due to be out next month. So in some ways,
Okay.
it continues to be. I mean, this hasn't ended yet. We don't know when it will end. In some ways, it has been and continues to be a struggle. But in other ways, it has afforded me the opportunity to look at the struggle and question my response to the struggle and question my resolve to deal with the struggle, and then even go deeper into issues that I may have glossed over. But now we have the time. Now we are face to face with it, and we can't do anything about it but deal with it.
Okay, I'm still coming back to you because you raised critical questions concerning the issue of you writing down your thoughts and things like that. And I think that is quite psychoanalytic for me to hear that some of the people that were responding to you, they told you that you should try to pencil down your thoughts. And in the long run, all those kind of things that you've written down could amount to something that could be a very good creative piece. And you make me to remember the head from South Africa, whom most of our writings are to do with things like this. But before I come back, please let me just quickly take a Denja, our former president, is in the house. Denja.
Okay, how are you?
I'm doing great, and you?
I'm here.
Yeah, exactly. You know, there's a Yoruba proverb that says, so,
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay. Yeah, if I may ask you the question, because I know quite sure that you have also been in it also. This staying indoor, what exactly has it done to you as a writer and as someone who is involved in the creative industry? What's your view about it?
Again, your voice is always breaking. It's not clear, but let me hear what you're saying. Well, If I can
Okay.
get what you're saying, can you get me?
Yes, I'm just okay. Yeah.
What
Yes,
state in-laws
I can.
Okay. What's your question again? Your question again?
Yes, you're saying yes, you're saying what has it contributed to you during this COVID-19 period as a writer?
Well, you have to be conscious of your use of time, whether you are on a lockdown or you are free to gallivant around.
Okay.
So the lockdown can be depressing for some writers, while it can be very inspiring for others. Me ordinarily, I write where there is noise. I write when there is so much activity around me. So when the lockdown came, I was like, will I benefit from this lockdown? Because I don't like quietude when I write. I like to be active. I can write in a very noisy environment. Solitude does not really help me in writing. I've written my best works while I'm in the midst of concert, in the midst of noise, and in places where some people may not find very good for writing. So when the lockdown came, I had to be conscious that if I don't take time, I will just waste the whole time. So I was conscious of that. While I was using the time to read, I was also conscious that let me try my hands on some things that I had wanted to write for so long that I have not had time for. So I think I was able to just link up with another writer who is also in the lockdown. And I said, look, we have had some measure of, we have teased ourselves about writing something all the while, a particular kind of writing that me and the lady have been talking of writing for ages. I said, now
I hope it's only writing.
Yes, now is the time for us to write. So we started experimenting. She will write something, I will respond, she will write. And we came up with something that was wonderful. Talking about the lockdown from a perspective that was very entertaining, enlightening, from marital perspective, you know, imagining husband and wife caught down the lockdown. We tried to write something erotic, sensual, that will also impact on society. So that is the thing I think I can take away from this lockdown as per the creative writing that I did. Because ordinarily, I don't write, I don't like solitude. I don't like isolation when I write. That is me as a person. That is just a kind of contrary perspective, personally. So I think anybody who has done wonderful writing during this lockdown must have done that through a very disciplined approach. You know, all writers, if you are not disciplined, if you don't set a target for yourself that you must write this at a particular time, you will just keep postponing, and the writing you have done will be left there. So inspiration that we all talk about is not that what inspire, right? It's not what that get you to write. You get inspired, but you must also perspire. Thank you very much. I think
thank you very much, but I would have loved to prove for
I'm in a busy environment, so thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much. So let's go back to the Kaiti. I think that's the former president of the Association of Nigerian Authors, and it's a little bit of how he has been able to maximize the time. But I would have loved to ask him that female writer that both of them they are exchanging letters. If I thought she was also a married woman, just like you are. I don't know if I thought you had what I said.
Ola, I'm sorry, I didn't get you. Please, can you say again what you were saying?
Okay, sorry, please. I was trying to. Yeah, let's go back to what you said the other time. You were talking about your thoughts being put down.
Okay, yeah, how I did put my hair.
Yes, your thoughts being put down. Now, all the thoughts that you've been able to put together.
Yes.
Are you trying to process it to become a script, or you just documenting it for the sake of yourself? Just for you to know that this is just like a therapy that you are just using it for.
Okay, if I get you well, you're asking me if the thoughts that I put down in writing were just for therapeutic purposes, or they were creative works as well? Is that the question?
Yes, exactly.
Okay. Well,
yes, exactly.
I did mention earlier, but I'll say again that the thoughts that I put down in writing for therapy's sake, those were not necessarily creative writing, even though as a writer, I added some flowers and salt and pepper to it to excite myself when I was reading it again and also sending it to the therapist. But the work that I told you that I did for my creative writing was actually poetry. You know, I was able to complete a manuscript of poetry that I had started earlier, and another one. So I have two manuscripts that were done and dusted within a couple months into the pandemic, and I even started another one. I'm on the third one right now. So in terms of how COVID-19 has impacted my creativity, it has been a blessing. It has been a blessing because I have been thrust into this situation where you have plenty time, but not just plenty time to deal with disruptions, upheavals around you, around the people that you love, around people in the world. So you read the news and you find things that are happening that are really frightening. At a time, I stopped watching the news. One time I was at the doctor's and I was asking him what the figures were. And he said, haven't you listened to the news? And I said, no, I'm not listening to the news like that anymore. In fact, I even wrote a poem about the numbers. So each time I was to go look for the numbers of COVID cases for a day, I would have very severe panic attacks that I asked myself why I was going to kill myself about things that I knew I was going to react on negatively. So what I did at the time was write a poem about how I was feeling about just going to find out the number of COVID-19 cases in Nigeria, and particularly when I was going to look for the particular numbers for Port Harcourt City where I live in, it was crazy. So I stopped doing that, and to occupy myself within the period, I engage myself more in my creative writing. So I was able to complete two manuscripts. I'm on the third one and I'm going along nicely. And you know, in that way, it has helped my creative writing. Having said that, I want to add very quickly that for every writer, the reaction and the response in terms of their creativity would be different. So I do not expect that another writer will respond to all of the confusion and all of the fright with getting to do their writing a lot. I mean, a lot more than they usually did. For me, I think that what we've all achieved and all of us in this room have achieved is just being alive and being here. That's an extraordinary feat. You know, that means that in addition to us taking the precautions, that God has also been faithful and kept us alive. So we have managed to survive, and any writer who has managed to survive at this time has done something great, and is also going to come out on the other side prepared to do more creatively for themselves. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. I will think about it, but before that, let me go to Shola. Shola. Yeah, let me go back to Shola. Shola, can you hear me? Hello, Shola.
Trying to unmute my mic. Okay, I'm unmuted.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Shola, please your position on the last discourse that you.
You're not clear, so you have to be slowly. Sorry. Say it again.
Okay. Based on the last exposition that you showed on the.
Based on the last, that's all I heard. So mute your mic again.
This is a final audit call.
Your mic. Okay.
What are the experiences as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic?
I can't
What
hear
are those
you.
types? Can you hear me now?
Now,
Hello?
yes. Say it again, please. Sorry about that. I think you are totally frozen now. You are frozen. Can't hear a word. Yes, I think
So what
you're
are those
right.
areas
From
that a
NIBF,
creative?
I think it's network. You froze, Mr. Tafik. I didn't hear you at all. So you have to say it again. Your network
Hello?
has issues.
Okay. Hello, can you hear me now?
Yes, I can.
Hello?
Go on, I can hear you now.
Hello, can you hear me now? Okay.
Yes, I can.
What are those areas the creative write about as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic? Those
Okay, I heard
areas.
What can the
Those
creative write about?
areas of inspiration, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic.
Okay. There are lots to write about. I believe that as a creative, whatever is of interest to you is what you should write about, because that is what you're going to do your research on. Okay, so I did something on sexual violence because that's what interests me. I've also done quite a bit on the environment because that interests me. Okay, so I've been reading up on COVID-19 pandemic and how it affects children. So I've been asking children to write their own personal stories, again, because that's what interests me. So as a creative, whatever it is, and I'm looking forward to all the different stories that are going to come out of what the children are going to write, because they're going to have all sort of different experiences, because I've selected children from different parts of Lagos, for example, and the children from outside Lagos will also have different experiences as well. So their stories will be different. So you can imagine putting all those stories together for children to, share. So that's what I think, that whatever it is that's happening in your community is what I believe that will be good for a creative to write about. And then we can now all share our stories, on different platforms. Like I said, I will be very much interested to read what it is you, for example, experience that will be different from mine in a very creative way. Or even Mr. Denja, for example, maybe somewhere up north, it will be different from down south or the east or the west. We hear the people who, for example, I know have not worn a face mask throughout this period. How did they feel? How was it? And then when they go to somewhere where it's compulsory, was there a difference? And then, the stories that I talked about, families staying together, how was it? I'd like to know, what it is that happened. Again, there's a program that I have been thinking about for years. During this pandemic, talking about blessing or not being a blessing, it was a blessing for me because I actually had time to sit down with the people that I wanted to organize this program with, and we were able to write the stories that we wanted to come out. And we actually mentioned it that if it wasn't for this pandemic period, we will not have that time. We always seem to be too busy doing one thing or the other. But this calmed us down. We didn't have anywhere to go, so we had time to write. And what I realized is that no matter what angle I took my story, pandemic, COVID-19 kept coming up. So, like I said, write about your community, write about what it is that's going on, write about your experiences, because you're the best person to write about your experience. There's no point in me trying to write about what happened in China. Yes, it's good for me to imagine, but it's better for me to imagine what it is that happened here, because it actually happened either directly or indirectly. And then I can also find people that I can actually interview who've been through whatever topic I want to write about. And that again makes it even more interesting.
Hello?
I'm done.
Okay, yeah, a question from what you've just said. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Yes, so now you as a writer, you know, the issue of COVID-19 had more to do with medical issues. So
Yes.
things related to medicine,
Yes.
and what have you. We critics, majority of us, we are not really abreast with things related to medicine. So how do you think that we'll be able to cope writing something that is quite deep and something that will cover the space, especially since this is a medical subject? How do you think we can go around that?
Well, I mean, that's why we're creative. And I mean, it's like saying, how do actors who are not medical doctors, how are they able to act? That's the beauty of us, you know, being who we are. We have a very good imagination, but like I said, you can actually interview the professionals. Okay, you can talk about it, find out about it, do your research. As they say, Google is your friend. You know, and there's so many things that have been they're out there online that you can read, so that you'll be stating facts. The only thing you'll be doing is stating those facts in a creative way. So you don't have to say the wrong thing, because the facts are out there, and there are enough frontline health workers for us to take on, ask them questions, find out what it is they've gone through, go and visit isolation centers. You know, there are people who've been doing that. You've seen BBC filming and all of that. There's so much that we can actually get from going to the very, very root of what these things are happening. And then we can write about it as creatively as possible, and make it very interesting.
Okay. Can you hear me, please?
Sorry?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay. Now, you made reference to BBC and the media and what have you out there. Now, the issue of media politicking during this COVID period has been a major concern to a lot of people that are indoor listening or looking up the newspapers and seeing what is being written. And even in the case of Nigeria, particular, a lot of people said the figures that were given out were not true. So how do you think that if you, or as a writer, have to rely on this kind of data, how do you think that we are not going to mislead our readers?
How do I think I'm not going to do what?
We are not going to mislead our readers.
Okay, misleading our readers already assumes that the figures are wrong, assumes that what it is coming out is wrong. I don't agree. I believe that a lot of people have decided that COVID-19 is not real in Nigeria. And what I usually say is because you do not know those who have experienced it. I have friends, I have relatives who have experienced it, who I have been speaking with during their COVID-19 journey. And I know that it's been very, very hellish for them. I also, unfortunately, have lost very dear people to me from COVID-19. So those are the kind of things that I would talk and write about. I keep talking about personal experiences, whether they are mine or other people, but I have been able to experience those things. And I also do not assume or believe that those figures are not right. I do not agree with the majority of Nigerians who think that it's all politics, because I know that it is not all politics. I'm also close to some of those people, medical doctors that are on the front line of this in Nigeria. And I can assure you that what they're saying is real. I do not think that we'll be misleading people. I think what we need to do is show them perhaps photographs, or, you know, because it's like, I won't believe until I see it, and tell them our personal experiences. What I find out is that every time I tell people what it is that I know personally, they change their minds. They see it totally different. It's like, okay, so they're close to somebody who has been close to somebody who has experienced it, as opposed to somebody somewhere out there telling them that, oh, this happened to me. They don't believe, yes. But when they get somebody close by and I tell them and I share personal experiences, then they are ready to listen and believe me.
Okay. Then what about the case of the palliatives?
Yes.
Look, yeah, the case of the palliatives, the
okay, well,
number,
in terms of the
amount.
palliatives,
Yeah,
they didn't get it right.
Okay.
They didn't get it right. It's unfortunate that they didn't plan properly. It wasn't well executed. And so, unfortunately, greed came on, on the scene, and a lot of the people who were supposed to be sharing it only shared it amongst themselves or amongst their family or amongst the people that they knew. That is one of the problems. And then, even right from the beginning, when they said they were going to share palliatives, they only shared it. They only said they were going to share to a very, very small number of people. So, of course, there's no way it will ever have gotten round to everybody. So, what, perhaps. Again, people prefer money. Sometimes people prefer to, give me 5,000 naira rather than buy me 5,000 naira worth of goodies, because they can then decide what they want to do with it. I don't agree, but that's just the way people think. So we definitely got that sharing of palliatives wrong. Compared to the number of people that we have, let's just take Lagos or federal government, for example, it was wrong. It was totally wrong. They didn't get their act together. They didn't know what to do. It was overwhelming for them, which is why they had to stop after, a very short while. They needed to have gotten experts. They needed to have probably just limited it to the community and do like a test run and see how that worked, and then now move on. And then the organizations that decided to give money shouldn't have done that either. Again, that's my own personal opinion. Because I believe that the organizations that actually went out and gave out palliatives, they actually made more impact on the communities that they were serving.
Thank you very much, Shola. We so much appreciate that.
Thank
let's
you.
move back to Onyekachi. Onyekachi is a colleague in the University of Calabar. His area of specialty is digital literature. So I think this is the more critical aspect. Onyekachi, please, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
There is. Okay, let me. Onyekachi, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, Onyeka, you are into digital literature. You are into digital literature, digital literature. Of which I know this is from digital humanity. Can you enlighten us on what digital literature is all about and how we, the critics, can benefit from it during the post-COVID-19 era?
Well, in practice, digital literature is more or less the use of minute or complete technology in composing and distributing works of art. For instance, it also involves using digital apps like Facebook, WhatsApp, Twitter, even Zoom to compose literary works of art. And it also involves merging together or synthesizing other forms of art into one, the coming together of sound in terms of music, photography, cinematography, pictures, written words in the process of composing work of art. Now, the digital space gives the artists an opportunity to bridge all these boundaries in terms of their definitions into one and in composing a work of art. Now, you agree with me that what the pandemic did was to re-emphasize the existence of technology and its importance in our lives. For instance, in 2017, Henrietta did something on Facebook that is called Join Me Write Poetry. Now, what that does is that different persons around the world gather on his Facebook page to compose to compose a single poem. Like a collection might have a single poem might have like 5 persons around the world who compose a single poem. Now, during the lockdown, creatives appropriate the digital space. For instance, in terms of Facebook and Twitter, there was this thing going on that is called Still on the Matter. It makes use of infography and certain cultural norms in producing literatures that are steeped with environmental concept. For instance, you come online and you see a post that said, let's say, John made use of the soap that Babalawo gave his brother to use in bathing. John made use of the soap to wash clothes, and we are still on the matter. And there are responses in terms of creating these cultural memories that are personal to individuals from different dimensions. You agree with me that there is an upsurge in fragmented biographical compositions on Facebook, on Twitter, on Instagram, and on WhatsApp, in the sense that people narrate their personal lives, their personal existence on these social media spaces. And the social media spaces become a form of West African writers series, so to say, in terms of collecting the narratives that are emanating out not only from Africa, but from around the world. Now, creatives respond differently. It is not enough as not a medical doctor, you're not respond to the concept of COVID-19. We all are affected in different ways. Some of us lost family members, friends, those who are dear to us, the economic effect and all that. Then you would have to understand that how medicine or how the pandemic affect all sectors of our life also affects how the muse is recreated and recomposed within the social media spaces. The upsurge in terms of female abusing house helps and all that, male abusing their wives and children and all that, also led to a form of fragmented biographical compositions on social media. It becomes a form of communal narratives. For instance, if you look at Twitter, for instance, a thread becomes a form of thematic preoccupation about what is happening in our society, so that the social media space, so that the pandemic actually re-emphasizes technology. At present, we are trying to see how we can strengthen technology in our educational sector so that there can be a distant learning irrespective of the courses you are offering in the university. In the past, let's say in 2018, 2019, most of academic scholars pretend that technology was not important in the discourse of literature and other field of study. But in recent times, they are reconsidering their take in terms of the role of technology. And you have to understand too, that the social media space becomes a breeding ground in terms of educating Nigerians, in terms of education Africans and others in other parts of the world on how to compose their art. But the problem we're having on this space is in terms of theft of literary materials without people actually acknowledging the source of where they got the product, and passive criticism on the social media space. Passive criticism on social media space is the process of using likes and share button and emojis without, looking at deeper criticism of what the person has composed. Now, what you have to understand is that the social media space also imposes new form of criticism, which looks at the interface of technology and literariness, how creative is a literary work in the digital space. So in summary, what I would say is that we are all affected by this lockdown, and how we are affected also affects how we respond to issues that is related to medicine. You should also understand that during the presidential briefing, we have what is regarded as non-medical approach to preventing the spread of the virus. So you would also understand that there is an interface of this, just as the bubonic plague and other pandemics in the world gave rise to literature. Literature have somehow mitigate the effect of this because we try to understand it based on our literary approaches. We try to understand the pandemic based on our literary approaches and literary outputs in various digital space. And we also try to connect to human experiences based on fragmented autobiographical compositions in various various social media platforms, that when you put these memories of our subjugations, memories of failures of governance, memories of the failure of the health system, you'll be able to arrive at a narrative that touched at the core of our existence and at the core of being Nigerian. So the pandemic has more or less re-emphasized the place of digital humanities in terms of responding to pandemics and also responding to outbreaks. It also helps us to see how we can also, weaponize these spaces in terms of holding certain persons to account, in terms of also, monitoring what is done, how sincere these things are done, and how how it should be done, and how the spaces, how government, institutions, and people are using these spaces to synthesize others. So, in fact, in the past, we might not have anticipated meeting together through virtual space so that you can connect from any part of the world where you are. So the pandemic has really emphasized the place of technology in being a creative in the 21st century.
Okay, Onyekachi, thank you for taking us back to the classroom. Like being a student once again. For my question, let me put a question forward to you. The question is, do you regard a Facebook post as a successful post? Because with what we have now, there are a lot of Facebook posts, and there are a lot of Facebook posts, WhatsApp posts. Do you regard this set of people as successful poets? Having you passed through the university, you've seen what literariness should be, and you've seen all that is needed to be taken in for you to be able to come out as a successful poet in the full sense of it. Do you call the Facebook poets and others successful poets?
Well, imposing the marker success, and to be successful and to be unsuccessful is a matter of perspective. You should understand that what technology does is to re-emphasize the oral environment. And in the oral environment, we have poets who are regarded as successful, or poets who more or less chronicle the history and the perception of art within their community. The same exists in that space. Now, you have to understand too that in print literature, we have bad writers, we have bad poets who cannot make use of language, and who fail to observe complete processes of composition. A composition to space of apps that becomes a medium of classification as bad and unsuccessful. You have to understand is that what you have to understand is, one, the poet is a poet, irrespective of the medium. We are actually imposing the medium as a form of classification. But in terms of discourse, we disregard the medium and look at the content. However, there are bad poets and there are good poets. But if you look at the social media spaces like Ofemubi's page on Instagram, what he does is that he merges sound, the poetic sound, with music, with pictures, etc., which the print literature cannot actually, in most cases, give him that medium to, in terms of bridge the gap, in terms of bringing different form into a singular form. So what we are lacking on these spaces, I must say, is criticism. Because most of traditional scholars just wake up one morning and say that what they do on the social media space is bad poetry and all that. No, we have to classify. When during the Makakere conference, when the likes of Obiwale and all that attempt a definition of what African literature should be and in what language it should exist, Achebe says that the literature should exist in all forms, should be written in all languages, and that when the time comes, a classification will be given to it, and the language in which it should be written will be defined. And you will agree with me that the language in which Achebe wrote Things Fall Apart is not English as in English, but it's the redomestication of the English language using the Igbo syllables, using the Igbo pattern, the Igbo linguistic pattern of speaking in rendering his ideas, his history, and his perception about his people in the English language. So the same way too, the same freedom that was given to early writers in African literature should also be given to digital literature writers. Let all write. Let's all coexist. At the end of the day, like the Christian theology says, sieve the good writers from the bad writers by providing criticism in that space. Can you still hear me?
Okay, thank you. Yes, I can. Thank you very much. I see that you're really advocating for the digital poets and what have you. And there's no way I want to drag it. Definitely, that's what you are standing for. Well, I think you still need to help those of us in the traditional part to come to be in terms with what is happening on the social media. Thank you very much. I think before we take a leave for today, I'll still have to come back today. But before then, let me go back to my God that is in the house. I've been looking for you, but you're back. Henry Akubiru, you're welcome. Hello, can you hear me? Could you unmute yourself, please? Unmute yourself, please.
Hello?
Yes, can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Hello?
I can hear you.
Okay, you're welcome. Sorry for that. Also, now we're going to have a video with you. So, how is a prodigal in paradise?
The line, can you rephrase? I can't hear you.
Okay, I said, how is the prodigal in paradise?
You say, how's the prodigal in paradise? How is the prodigal in paradise? Yeah, the prodigal got the prodigal.
How is he doing now?
Okay.
How is he doing now in paradise?
Okay. The prodigal in paradise has sold that. It has actually sold that. I think I have less than. I'm only left with my personal copies. Those ones that I sent out are sold out. So I can say it really performed well, being my first published work that is in public space.
Which means that after this meeting, I'm going to send my account number to you. Please, to get part of the process. Back to this question.
Yeah.
Back to this question of the patient zero.
Your line is breaking. Your line is breaking, sir.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. I said back to the question. Yes, back to the question of patient zero, which happened to be the index case. That's the first patient that was infected in the COVID-19 outbreak. So it has become a political issue across the world that we could not really identify whom actually was infected with this virus before it came into the midst of the ministry. So now, being a creative, we are saddled with the business of providing solutions through our imaginations. Do you think that in what way can we respond to the place of patient zero?
In what way
can we as critics respond to the question of patient zero? That patient that actually got infected. Some said it was through the bath, some said it was through animals and what have you, even in the Wuhan market and things like that. But up to today, we've not been able to get whom patient zero was.
The line is breaking, but I think
So
I had
it's
something
difficult for
like
us to really know where exactly the rain started beating us. So as creative, can we really imagine the patient zero?
So as critics, you mean as literary critics or social critics, you have to define. How do we critics respond? Critics as in literary critics or social critics?
Yes, literary critics, because we provide solution to some of these problems that scientifically they can't really provide something for them. So we critics.
Well, the line still break me down. I think I can get to what you were saying. He said that as critics, how do we respond to this kind of situation? Every writer is a critic because you look at society where it is not going right to offer your useful pieces of advice. So in the case of this coronavirus outbreak and the accusations and counter accusations between American government and Chinese government, and also other individuals who are outside the picture, I think as writers and as critics, we have to interrogate the merits of these accusations. First of all, COVID-19 originated in China, in Wuhan. There was this story that it came from animals, from bats, and then it was passed to other animals. And then there are also stories about of it originating from a Wuhan library. So where do we stand in this? We have to dig to the ground and also find out actually whether it originated from a Chinese laboratory or from animals. And then when it was passed on, I sure it originated from animals, from bats or whatever, and then it was passed on to humans. Who was the first person? Who was the first patient? Who was the first victim of this disease? So what we do as writers have to dig into the ground to actually know the truth about this, without taking side, whether what America is saying is true or what the Chinese government is issuing out as truth. We have to scrutinize and find out the truth. We can also reflect this in our writings, or we can also do this through advocacy, through hashtags, through social media, through other means, through content creations, through opinions. So we don't have to sit on the fence. We have to take a side. Where did the rain start beating us? We have to do our job, digging down to find out where it started beating us. Are you hearing me?
Okay, yes, I can hear you. Considering the fact that China has denied the fact that they don't have this patient zero, and America is saying, look, patient zero is somewhere around you. In Africa, we know there's no patient zero here. So imaginatively, how do you think we can present this patient zero before the world?
Your line is breaking. It's breaking. The line is breaking. Can you rephrase the question?
Can you hear me now? Yeah, can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay. I said now that China denied the position or the fact about patient zero, and the world is questioning that, please, would like to know where this problem started from. Can we, as critics, imaginatively
imagination can work here, but then there's a limit to imagination. We have reality and we have imagination. If you imagine how this sickness originated without having evidences on ground, it might end up as imagination. So, but that doesn't mean you can't do your best. That doesn't mean you as a critic or as a writer can't find out where this issue started. So what I advise critics and writers to also deploy their imagination, but then they have to back it up with reality, because you can't actually depend on imagination wholesale.
Yeah, because can you hear me?
Yeah.
Can you,
hello?
Because if you look deeply into if you look deeply into literature, for instance, in Dante Alighieri's Divine Comedy, he provided clues into the issues of paradise, Gehenna, Paradiso, and the afterworld. It was after Dante's position. It was after Dante's position. We later had words such as paradise, and a lot of them come into the dictionaries and what have you. Jonathan Swift also did say in Gulliver's Travel. He tried to provide solutions to a lot of questions. Similarly, we have something like that in Robinson Crusoe's, Daniel Defoe's Robinson Crusoe, whereby he talks about the domestication of the environment. So over the years, even Galileo Galilei also talked about the issue of the earth integral at some point in time when some people said it is cyclical. So these various writers, they've been trying to provide solutions to what even scientists could not specifically tell us what the solutions are like. So that's why I was just trying to re-echo the position of patient zero, that could we really imagine whom exactly patient zero is? Could we really imagine that maybe perhaps like what we have in some parts of the world where you have somebody that is having a human having an affair with an animal as a result of that giving birth to something else? Or you have some people, like for the case of the Ebola, when it was said that it is the parts in Liberia and some part of West Africa that beats the board, and from there it's now transcended to where it is today. So, but in the case of COVID-19, the source has actually been complicated. So we as critics now, we are trying to look at it that, okay, let us just, Henry, what I want you to do for me is just give me an imagination of whom that particular person could possibly be.
Actually, I didn't get the question. The line, everything you said here, the lines have been breaking down. So I can't piece what you said. Can you make it simpler to speak slowly so that I can get what you're saying? The line is breaking.
Okay. Now, hello. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay. Yes. What I was trying to say is that, I'm trying to ask you to imaginatively respond to whom this patient zero could possibly be. We had cases whereby
to imaginatively respond to whom
the patient zero
you
could
want
have
me
been.
to. Who could this patient zero be?
Yeah.
Creatively?
Yes.
That's $1 million question. But definitely it's a human being. Imaginatively, I can say it is a human being. Huh?
Okay.
I'm having a problem with the network. Is it? Hello?
Let's move on. Let me go to your question. Now, Henry, can you hear me? Can you hear me, Henry?
Hello?
Can you hear?
Yeah. I'm hearing it's breaking. I'm hearing it's breaking. Yes.
Yeah. Now you are a journalist. There have been a lot of power play around COVID-19. There have been a lot of power play around COVID-19 in Nigeria, as well as the world at large. Can you give us a 360-degree view of COVID-19 politics and how the creative writers can deploy this in their writings?
Okay, a 360-degree view on COVID-19 and how creative writers can react to it.
And how, yes, we can deploy it in our writings. What, like those of us that are creative, how can we use it in our writings?
Okay, COVID-19 in Nigeria has been receiving conflicting stories from the government side and from those of us on the other side. Now, there is this case of numbers, thousands of cases being recorded daily, whereas in reality, people are not seeing these human beings who are victims of this COVID-19. And also we have stories of government feeding school children, even when they were in their mother's houses. Now we are seeing also, we have stories of government saying that so number of patients have recovered. Still, in reality, some of us are not seeing these patients. And then in March, especially in major cities like Lagos and then Abeokuta and Ibadan, there was all such in cases of $1 million boys. These are social miscreants and robbers who were going from house to house, robbing people. And the security agencies were powerless before the rest of us. Now, the news we also heard from the other side was that this were figment of imagination of some Nigerians who wanted to rubbish the security agencies. As a critic, as a writer, how do you respond to this? A writer draws from his sociological home base. He draws from his environment, what he sees, what he hears from others. What we do is to immerse ourselves, whether we were victims of COVID-19 or not. Personally, I haven't seen anybody who has either suffered from COVID-19 or recovered from it. But that doesn't mean it doesn't exist. The person I haven't met anybody in Lagos, but they may exist, don't get me wrong. Maybe because the population of Lagos is so large that you may not come across one or two people who have it. But on the whole, so many people are complaining that why keep us at home when we are not seeing this COVID-19? Some people say they have seen it. I have not seen it. So as a critic, as a fiction, you also bring this into play. You have to also bring this into play by fictionalizing, because the COVID-19 politics in Nigeria is more of fiction than reality. Or it is a combination of reality and fiction. People stuck at home, hungry. You can't move from one place to the other. As a writer, it sinks into you. We also hear stories of police extorting individuals, motorists on the road. This is also forms part of what you're going to write as a writer. What about people who were sick, who couldn't go to hospital because they were scared that if they got to the hospital, they'll be labeled COVID-19, whereas they were not suffering from it. So that's why I said earlier that COVID-19 in Nigeria is a combination of fiction and reality. It exists, yes. The numbers increasing daily, a little bit to the side, to the right, a little bit to the right. It's not everything I'm going to say here. There are some stories that when we say it out, people will be shocked. Now, as writers, we are influenced by what happens in our environment, both the positive and the negative. COVID-19 is a veritable ground, a breeding ground for us, for our imagination to run riot. We have to criticize. We also tell survival stories. Those who survived it, we may get across to them. There are stories out there in the media, those who survived, they told their stories. For those of us who didn't know anybody who survived or who suffered from it, we can also use our imagination. So I think I will stop here. Let me hear what you say as a follow-up.
Yes, can you hear? Yes, thank you for those. Thank you for taking us through that book. Thank you for taking us through that overview. I think it's quite enlightening. My question now is that, based on what you have said, you said it's a combination of fact and fiction. That the COVID-19 Nigeria is the combination of fact and fiction. So, and that is very stunning for somebody to know.
Especially, it's a combination of fact and fiction. Especially when it has to do with the number of cases being recorded. Not that it doesn't exist. I'm talking about the number of cases.
Okay. Are you
Hello?
See that those figures that we are correct or they are not true?
Is that what?
I said, are you trying to say that those figures, the figures that are put out there, they are not actually true?
Because as a journalist who listens to the flow, the traffic of information from NCDC and the Nigerian government, I want to dispute in totality that the figures are unreal. But as somebody who lives in Lagos, who see these figures, and who goes about every day without encountering human beings who are suffering from COVID-19 or hearing stories. We know thousands of people in Lagos. We also live in streets. We have church members. And when after months, you have not had anybody who said, I have recovered from COVID-19. You begin to doubt the number NCDC is issuing. So as I said, it could be a combination of fact and fiction. You can be cynical when you don't have facts to back up these figures. So many people are expressing the same concern. They are saying, where are these human beings who are victims of COVID-19 in Lagos? Lagos is supposed to be the epicenter of COVID-19 in Nigeria. Some people say they have seen. The majority of people have encountered, they have not seen any human being. That's what I'm saying. So this figure being released by government, it's possible that they exist and we are not seeing them. The people I'm encountering, and personally, we are not seeing these patients and those who have recovered. They may exist somewhere, but not to our knowledge.
Thank you very much about that, because Shola was saying that actually she had an encounter with people it happened. So that's why I'm just trying to oppose that experience to see it all happened in a round like that or not. Henry, before you,
I have when she said she knew people who had suffered from COVID-19. People she knew. Personally, I don't know of anybody, and I haven't heard of anybody close to me or around me. I haven't. So I have to base my judgment based on empirical evidence.
On what? Your own experience?
My own experience, and for the experiences of those around me.
Okay. Okay, if I may ask, I quite know quite well that despite the whole figure conflicting and what have you, one way or the other, you were also indoor during that period.
Yeah.
Okay. Was that period? Yes, that's your indoor period. Was that indoor period more of blessings to you?
Personally, I wasn't indoors. You know, I belong to the category of workers who are on essential duty. So right from the day one of the lockdown, I have been going to work from the day one until now. So I'm not among those who stayed indoors most of the time. I've been doing my regular work right from the day one of the curfew.
Okay, from your outdoor experience.
You have to go to your
Okay, from your outdoor experience during that period. Yeah.
Yeah. From my
outdoor
experience, what
experience.
happened?
Yeah, from your outdoor experience. Now,
from my experience,
yes, that period, for those of us that aren't journalists, we were locked up indoors, but you had the opportunity of being out there. Could you tell us some of
the line is breaking once again. You say from those of you who were locked, from those, the line is breaking. From those of you who were locked, who didn't go anywhere during that period.
Yes, you were outdoor during that period. Yes, you were outdoor. You were outdoor during that period.
I was outdoor.
Yes, we are just. Yes, we only want to hear from you how it looked like by then.
Okay. Yeah. How it looks like? Actually, Lagos was almost deserted. I've never seen that kind of thing in my life. Sometimes we drive from house to work and you won't pass more than 20, 30 vehicles on the road. And you won't meet people walking down the road. It was really a shocking experience. And so many people, COVID-19 also increased the number of beggars in Nigeria because so many people don't have means of livelihood. There were so many Lagosians who depended on daily basis. They had to do their job, they had to go to market to survive. So these people were indoors. So many people were begging. So many people were begging. And they relied on handouts to survive. Poverty became a reality. That a human being or a family can stay a day without eating. It was a big issue. I saw area boys, once you drove on the road, you will be molested by area boys. They would insist on you giving them handouts before they will allow you to pass. It was terrifying. And so many people were being robbed. In isolated places, you will see a group of 1, 5, 6, 7, 10 people, area boys, hungry, menacing looking, laying people, including those on essential duties, collecting the handsets, collecting laptops. It was scary. It was even difficult for those on essential duty because you must go to work daily. And once in a while, you will run into these boys. So what we do to make sure that we are not caught on the rough side was to dash them money before they will come and rob you. That is if you are lucky. Some people were never lucky. They were robbed. It was a sad experience while the coffee lasted.
Yes, Eric, can you hear me? Eric, can you hear me? This 1,001 boys, this 1,001 boys came up during that period.
1 million boys.
1,001 boys.
1 million
boys. Yeah, 1 million boys. Please respond to it. Because our international listeners, they do, by then, they don't know what was happening actually about that situation. And we all in Lagos will experience the 1 million boys just in a few minutes.
1 million was actually a reality. Close to my house where I was living, they came to a
it's not a fiction. It's not a fiction.
It's not fiction. It is reality. Okay. It is reality. This one happened right behind where I was staying. They robbed a supermarket. And every night, people would spill out on the streets and on the road with machetes, waiting for 1 million boys. They actually robbed some neighborhoods. 1 hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, unmolested. And security agents were unable to do anything. It was an embarrassment to this country. It's not fiction, it happened. I saw it happened right there on my market. This market was robbed. For 1 hour they were there, nobody came to there. No security agent came to their rescue. They had a field day in some places. Before now, Lagosians now prepare themselves to defend their neighborhoods. I've never seen such a thing in my life. It was like a war situation. People were clutching machetes. They were holding clubs to guide themselves, their families, and their neighborhoods. They were actually exchanges, sometimes between 1 million boys and neighborhood watchers. It's a reality, not fiction. There were stories.
Okay. Thank you very much, Henry.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you very much. I think from your journalistic angle, we've been able to hear more about what happened outdoor by then during that period. But I think I'm having somebody that I'm looking face to face. That's Abdurrahman Adebayo. Abdurrahman, can you hear me? Abdurrahman, can you hear me? Okay. I don't think. Okay. Yeah, let me go back to Ekaiti. Ekaiti, before we call it a day, what do you have to tell the world out there about your writing and you as a writer?
Sorry, what do I have to tell the world about what?
Your writings, and you as a writer.
Oh, okay. You've already introduced me. My name is Ekaite George. I'm a creative writer.
I want you to do it yourself.
I know. I'm a creative writer who lives in Nigeria, Port Harcourt, Nigeria. I write mostly poetry, and my collection of poetry, Saints and Scoundrels, was released in 2018. I have a new one on the way. It's going to be released next month. And even another one maybe towards the very end of the year. If you want to find more details about my work, and I'm also a development practitioner. I am a gender justice and environmental justice advocate. Much about my works and my writings can be found on my website at ekaitegeorge.com. My book is on Amazon. Details on ekaitegeorge.com. But just to talk further about what I do as a writer and as a poet and as an actor and advocate for gender and the environment in terms of the theme of what we're here about, which is COVID-19 and the creative industry, how we're going to recover and go forward. I want to say that as a poet, I have been able to navigate these times with the aid of my creative writing. Like I mentioned earlier, It's been an unsettling and frightening time, but just to be able to dip into the well of creativity that is in me at this time, to do the tough job of going into that place where I put my poetic thoughts on pen and on paper or on my computer, as the case may be. It has helped me to navigate this time in a way that I've been impressed with myself. And I want to say that writers can attempt to do that for themselves as well. If they cannot, they can continue to try and stay alive, as we all are doing right now, and read from other writers and share their works with the writers community. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Well, let's move on to Shola Alamutu. Shola Alamutu. Is she there? Okay. Onyekachi. Onyekachi.
Yes, I'm here. Can you hear me? Hello? Can you hear me? Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Yes,
okay.
I can.
So what did you say? Hello?
Who am I with now? Shola. Hello? Shola.
Yeah,
Hello?
I can hear you. I thought you called me.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah, Onyekachi, let's move on. What do you have to tell the world out there about yourself and your writings?
Well, basically, I normally don't like speaking about myself. I allow the critic. I allow the critic to do their job. I'm not always comfortable to speak about myself. But what I have to say using this platform is that literatures that are published on the digital space and social media spaces should be given more attention. Criticism should be tailored towards discussing this literature. And while discussing it, technology too should come into play in terms of discussing it. However, we should also forgo the habit of classifying all literatures that are produced on the social media space here as unserious literature, as literature not having literary values. We should first study this literature, start the process of classification, then we'll be able to separate the ones that are real from the ones that cannot pass for a literary composition.
Okay, Onyekachi, but you know quite. Okay, but Onyekachi, you know quite well that in terms of canonization, the serious and the unserious literature, in terms of canonization, both the serious and unserious literature, there is a big demarcation between them, and that is why books such as Adlichi's, these books, and a lot of them like that, in serious literary studies, they are not regarded as serious literature, no matter how fantastic the narrative could be. So that's just canonization for you. So for you who also want to take us down to the Facebook in the 21st century, I think we so much appreciate, but I want to really think how what is on this Facebook could enter into the classification of a serious literature when we know quite well that most of all these things is an escapist way of leasing away time and a lot of things like that. Please, I apologize for trying to make such kind of submission, but I think it's just a food for thought. So thank you very much, Onyekachi. Back to my other Henry Akubiru. I know you've been writing some things of late. So what can you tell the world out there about your latest writing and what they should look for to see about your writing?
Writing? I do a lot of things. Some of you know me as a novelist, but I'm not restricted to novel writing. I also do a bit of poetry. I have unpublished plays. I also do write non-fiction. I do a lot of editing work too. And then I just finished a biography that is on somebody from on a public figure actually who impacted society during his lifetime and was also a wealthy man. So I encourage writers to also try their hands on autobiographical writings. It's not all about writing poetry, drama, novel. Because there is, if you want to survive as a writer, you also try your hands on non-fiction, like autobiography. It pays. The money we make from writing a biography, I said autobiography, I made a mistake, a biography, you may never get it as a writer in Nigeria in 1-2 years. So I combine a lot of things. I write poetry, I write fiction, I write drama. Presently, I'm working on a work of fiction set across 34 continents, spanning over centuries. It's a historical fiction I'm working on.
Okay, thank you very much.
Researching on it.
Okay, so what genre of the literature? What genre of the literature do you think we can associate to you?
Me is well, right now I have a published work of fiction, a novel. But I write. Those who knew me when I was undergraduate, I was a poet, I was a playwright, I was a novel. I still have manuscripts in these genres. I have up to 6-7 unpublished manuscripts, both in drama, in poetry, in fiction, in children's literature. So I describe myself as a writer. I don't want anybody to box me as a novelist or as a poet or as a playwright. I write everything from fiction, novel to poetry to drama to children's literature. I see myself as a writer, not just a novelist alone, because inspiration for all these genres come to me naturally. And I have unpublished manuscripts in almost all the genres, including non-fiction. So I'm a writer, that's the way I see myself. But right now, people can say you're a novelist because that's the one you know. But I have unpublished genres. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, thank you very, very much. I think a lot of appreciation to all the panelists for giving out your time to show up in this program. We so much appreciate what you have come to do. We know quite well that just like it will be said, that silver or gold I do not have, but what I have I give unto thee. So we just so much believe that this creative writing and the trade itself in the future, we're going to make the best out of it. And I encourage those of us out there also that if you're creative, you should keep being creative. Though it may not seem to be a billion-dollar business or a trade, but the fact remains that if you want to bring something out of it, that is what you have been done. Because we hear about the Shakespeare of this world today, after 400 years gone. We hear about the John Milton, we hear about people like Christopher Marlowe, we hear about John Dryden, and a lot of them. So I just want to tell you that look, this trade is one of the best trades that you could have in the world. And if you're just one of us, I think you're one of the best kind of person that ever appeared on the surface of the earth. So it's a pleasure to be with you, and also it's a pleasure for us to be around. Next year, we look forward to a better proof that will be better than what we have now. So we thank you very much for coming. Ladies and gentlemen, panelists and members of the NIBF, and all those locally and internationally linked to this program. This remains the NIBF 19th Virtual Nigerian International Book Fair, which started on the 1st of September, rounded off on the 7th of September. And the title of this program is Critics and Other Writings During the COVID-19 Pandemic and afterwards. We so much appreciate. Please do have the rest of the day. Thank you. Thank you very much. Goodbye.
Thank you for
having me.
having
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Good afternoon, sir. Good afternoon.
Thank you. Yeah. Okay.
That actually can make it as a writer, but you have to be paid.
All right. You are welcome back to the Situation Room of the Nigerian International Book Fair Trust. I must very well commend all our participants for connecting with us virtually. And a very big thank you to the Association of Nigerian Authors for doing justice to what it takes to be creatively active through the power of pen before, during, and of course, post-COVID-19. Really appreciate you for that wonderful session. The next program we shall be having will be from the hours of 4 p.m. to 6 p.m. Nigerian time, and is organized by the Booksellers Association of Nigeria. That's their third program for this virtual event. And of course, we enjoin you to stay tuned as we bring that to your hearing as soon as it's 4 p.m. Thank you very much for